folks, this is Alan Hart, ironically in front of the Hart Senate office building. Today I'm meeting with Senator Jon Ossoff. We're going to talk about the hemp in the United States and the growing industry that the hemp industry is. We want to enhance farmers and allow them to do their crops. We don't want heavy restrictions. What we do want is good, solid regulations that make sense, and we want to avoid any level of a ban or any kind of long-term loss of the industry. There's over 300,000 jobs supported by this industry. I think they're going to listen to us. Have a great day.
Welcome to the show. I'm Clay and I'm here with Alan. Today we've got a pretty important conversation lined up. If you're following the hemp industry, as many of you know, legislation has been changing all across the country, and in Georgia specifically where we're at, it's been a pretty hot topic, and it's not something that's just happening behind closed doors. For the legislators, it's something that's really affecting small businesses, farmers, entrepreneurs, consumers all across the country. Again, especially here in Georgia. So today I'm sitting down with the owner of Classic Sativa, Alan, who just got back from a trip to D.C. where he was meeting up with lawmakers, such as senators, representatives, their staff, to talk about the future of hemp in America. So welcome, Alan. Thanks for hopping on the mic today.
Thanks, Clay, and thanks everybody listening in. This is really exciting. I hope this podcast can really be something that really takes off for all of us and helps to inform the public about where the hemp industry is at and how we can actually all be involved to get more federally legal cannabis available around the United States.
Awesome. So let's just jump right in. So first off, what made you want to go to D.C. in the first place? Why were we involved? Why now? What was the driving force behind it? Just give us a nice little rundown about what was going on.
Of course. So the overall is that Classic Sativa is part of the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. We are a member of basically the biggest hemp industry group in America. The U.S. Hemp Roundtable is a very strong lobbying and lawyer group that helps the hemp industry to connect with legislators as well as talk about policy and try and craft a policy and politics going forward that can shape the hemp industry into something that really is not only responsible for itself, but also puts forward a good deal of effort in keeping the positive legislation that we would like to see that would really allow consumers to get better products in a more timely manner. So the trip to D.C. was a scheduled one, but it came at a very fortuitous time because the week before there was an impromptu Senate Appropriations Committee meeting that passed a new bill that would basically kill the hemp industry. But at the end of the voting, they allowed a 1-year delay of the implementation of that legislation. So in essence, the Senate, according to, with a lot of motivation coming from Mitch McConnell and very few other senators, we were seeing restrictions to the hemp industry would take THC completely away from the hemp industry, which is something that basically physically cannot happen, simply because hemp plants have THC on them and they can't be removed. It's just part of nature, part of physics, and that's not going to change anytime soon. The interesting part is that we were able to talk with some of the senators on that appropriation committee. I actually was able to have meetings on Wednesday the 16th with Senator Jon Ossoff and Senator Rand Paul, as well as several House representatives who would have to vote on the bill when it came over to the House side.
Yeah, and just to clarify, this is nationwide. This isn't just Georgia specific that you're talking about, correct?
Yeah, no, that's a good distinction because yes, there's local, there's state, and there's national politics. And this was a part of national politics. That's not to say we're not involved locally or in the state. In the state of Georgia, we actually had our legislative cycle early in the year. We are one of the few states that have a single legislative cycle per year, and that was all handled basically before the month of April this year. So it starts in January and ends in the first week of April. We were in Atlanta basically 8 times in 8 weeks, talking to different legislators, giving comments in committee meetings, and we were really quite successful this year in the Georgia cycle, simply because we were able to defeat about 5 different bills that would have further restricted the hemp industry through different definitions that would make the hemp industry basically kill a lot of the different THCs and put restrictions on beverages. In fact, they were going to take the Senate this year in Georgia voted to have all THC removed from beverages. It passed the Senate. It went to the House and got a substitution bill that then didn't pass. But in the end, it was defeated, and we can still have hemp beverages up to 10 milligrams in the state of Georgia. But to go back to the main point there's a national scene that we were visiting with as part of the Hemp Roundtable last week. And yeah, it was sort of it was a scheduled trip that we try to do twice a year to continue to keep the communication with legislators open so that we can have our voice heard.
Awesome. Very cool. So again, back to the national side of things and back to this trip to D.C., because I remember when we were back and forth to Atlanta, it was a very busy time, back and forth, constantly talking to people. Anyway, back to the D.C. So when you were talking to these legislators like Jon Ossoff and Rand Paul, what were the big talking points? Like when you sat down with them or their staff or whoever you were talking to at the time, what were you really trying to get across to them?
I would say it was really very interesting. The senators gave us some of their time, and these were separate meetings too. Jon Ossoff was asked about what he knows about hemp, and he replied very intelligently, basically that, in fact, he gave some of the very wording that we were trying to put in our talking points, including the hemp industry doesn't need prohibition, it does need a little bit better regulation. And that comes down to looking responsible and making sure that we're not providing a dangerous product to people who are not ready or aware of what that product can be. So Ossoff came right out and said he was in favor of further regulation but not prohibition. And anybody who wants to prohibit the hemp industry really is a prohibitionist of any cannabis and any marijuana, because what we're looking at with hemp is our first foray into federally legal cannabis. And it's still in its infant sort of stage as an industry. We've only been completely federally legal since the 2018 Farm Bill. And so in the past 7 years, we've seen a dramatic jump in what we can do federally in cannabis. And we've seen a dramatic jump in people in the United States having access to clean and well-made cannabis that is regulated. It's regulated. It's also got oversight by both the USDA and the FDA. We're only allowed to offer certain packaging, and we want to make that even stronger. Only recently have we added restrictions to age verification, which also is a very good thing for the hemp industry. But taking THC away is dangerous, not only because we can't grow a plant without THC, but when you are using your endocannabinoid system, studies have actually shown that CBD is twice as effective if you get a tiny amount of THC or more alongside your CBD. And that's mainly because we've got 2 different receptors in our endocannabinoid system. That's important because when you tickle both receptors, your endocannabinoid system is more engaged, which makes both of those receptors even more effective. Some people know that as the entourage effect. And it's real and it's important. Another thing I can mention real quick is that when we're talking about the best ways to basically use CBD, use hemp for your own health, it's always better to have whole plant. And we've always believed in that. And one of the things that the hemp industry has done that you don't see in a lot of the marijuana industries is that innovation, that use of the whole plant, the real definition of trying to figure out and use our endocannabinoid system with the entourage effect. And anybody who has really understood the entourage effect and had a full plant experience is going to know that it tends to be much more effective overall than just trying to tickle your CBD receptors.
Absolutely, 100%. And my next question was, what are the goals here? What's the end game for talking to these people up in D.C.? Why take the trip up there? But it sounds like you kind of already hit that nail on the head with, we need the whole plant available. We are all for regulation. We're all for age verification, lab testing, safe, clean product. We're about regulation, but we need to regulate the correct things. We don't need to be regulating the THC or this or the that. We need to, again, regulate the correct things. It's all about having a safe, clean product for the consumer.
I agree, you're absolutely right. Manufacturing processes are needing slightly to be defined better. And when I say that, in any manufacturing, we have the potential to create situations that are unhealthy for the end consumer. In the case of cannabinoids, we're talking about, in the case of Delta-8 especially, you're taking CBD and converting it into Delta-8, and in some cases what's left over in that conversion can be dangerous. So you have to have your Delta-8 tested stringently to make sure all those solvents that come out of the process are cleaned up and taken away from your Delta-8, for instance. But there's other manufacturing processes that can get into real details that can really be kind of detrimental to the end user. And it's so simple to have rules in place that make sure that the processors, that the manufacturers are doing what is necessary to keep things healthy. Because the end product in the hemp industry can be a very clean product. So having stringent manufacturing practices defined in legislation, as well as packaging practices so we're not appealing to minors, and then having your age restrictions in place so that you're not selling to minors. Now, that doesn't mean that minors don't have some level of a benefit. My own children who are 13 and 15 use CBD regularly, and it's important for their own mental health as well as sleep and keeping their body even more healthy. So it's really kind of interesting how we want to have something that's going to be really healthy and clean, as opposed to, say, the illicit market, where people are going to go anyway if they don't have clean hemp.
Yeah.
So.
And the cleaner of a product we can provide in the store, the less likely the people are to go to that illicit market like you were talking about. Yeah. And I like what you said, too, about defining the manufacturing side of things and having a cut and dry, like a clear-cut way of getting a clean product without everybody doing their own thing willy-nilly. And then there's some clean, some not so clean, and there should be more regulation on it. Like you were saying, it should be safe and clean for everybody without a question. There shouldn't be like, I don't know where this is coming from, or like, I don't know what might be in it. It needs to be safe, and everybody needs to be confident about what they've got and what they're putting in their body.
Absolutely. And it's hard to do with the cannabis plant, partly because it is so complex. There's so many different cannabinoids that we're finding, and we don't even understand what most of them do. We do understand an absolute ton about THCs and CBDs, and some other cannabinoids like CBG and CBN, which are being used very effectively in the hemp industry for giving people more focus and making them more cognizant, which some people didn't think the cannabis plant could do. And also CBN for giving relaxation and better sleep.
Very cool. So last point here. So for the people listening, whether they're in the industry, whether they're consumers, whether they're just people who are in this for the plant rights and the small business, what could they do to help the cause? If they wanted to get involved, what's the next step to be able to make their voice heard?
All right, so we actually have a link tree that has several options for people to contact their local legislators. We can guide you. We can even give you form letters that start the conversation. If you really believe in what hemp is doing and have seen some benefits in your own life, please contact your legislators. Please contact the governor's office, contact the president's office, but we also, in our link tree at Classic Sativa, have access for you to easily find ways to communicate with your legislators and tell them that hemp is here for their help.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate you being here and being willing to talk to me about this. I'm excited to get this out for people to hear because I think this is very important for people either in the hemp industry or consumers or just people in general. It's pretty important stuff that's actually happening. Again, not behind closed doors. It's affecting small businesses, farmers, whether Georgia or not, it's affecting people all around you. So if this is something that matters to you, don't stay silent. Get involved, get informed, contact your legislators. Thanks again, Alan, for everything you're doing to move this industry forward. If we had everybody doing what you're doing, I'm sure this industry would be in a different place. It takes a lot of courage to get up there and talk to these people in D.C. and run a small business. And yeah, do you have any last points for everybody or?
Sure, yeah. Everybody check out the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. Even if you don't want to become a member, and membership is actually a really pricey endeavor, but you can still be a donator, you can provide other support. Having hemp, a strong hemp industry is really going a long way to, I think, making the world a better place. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your efforts. And trust me when I say that the efforts that I've been doing are truly my pleasure because I really believe in what we're doing and I believe that this plan has really helped me personally. Thank you.
Cool. And with that, we are logging off. Thanks, everybody. Until next time.